Baseball story.
Friends, peace be with you.
Also with you.
Thank you for being here on this vigil for Fakes for Climate Justice. Can you all say that? Fakes for Climate Justice. We are people of faith who care about climate justice. And we welcome you here. Thank you, Anita, for playing Astro to center us this morning, this afternoon. Now it is our noon vigil. This is Church of the Covenant here at the corner of 67 Newbury Street, Berkeley and Newbury Street. We are sitting on unceded territory of the Massachusetts and Matakeesit people. We are floating on 1,100 wooden pilings above sacred waters that were once fished for livelihood and seen deeply as sacred. So we claim that sacredness. We honor those who are still working for justice today, especially our Indigenous siblings here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and elsewhere. So all of you are welcome in that spirit this day. May we all find grounding. Can you do that this morning, this afternoon? Can you find grounding for a moment? Find the earth under your feet. Find the water, and among that earth, feel the sky above you and the sun that blesses you from above, and recognize that you are essential in the creation story. You are a part of it. Your atoms, stardust though they be, are essential for the workings of life as we know it. So thanks be to the Divine One. Thanks be to each of you for being a part of this moment. My name is Rob Mark. I have the privilege of serving as one of the pastors here, along with Reverend Joshua Lazard at Church of the Covenant. And on behalf of this congregation, we welcome you all to this vigil moment. We are part of a wider story this day with Green Faith, spurring on some several hundred actions across this nation today and across the world today and tomorrow. So you are part of a wider story, and I love that reminder that we're not alone as people, as protectors, and as activists, people of faith caring for climate justice. So be most welcome in this place. You have some signs, we have some candles. We're going to hand out the candles. There may not be enough to go around, but please come and take a candle or pass one to a friend. Holly has put these together. These are part of our vigil today, and you can light them. We'll light them a little later because of the wind, but you remember what a candle feels. So please come and pass them around. Maybe come take a candle and spread them around. There's enough to go around. Maybe just hand one to another. Just, yes, don't pass the whole thing around. Love the sacred sounds that are gathering. Thank you for holding the signs as we vigil and give witness to downtown Boston here today. So I'm going to invite Betty Southwick, the co-chair of Church of the Covenant's Climate Jubilee team, to welcome us and answer the question, why are we here?
Good morning. Thank you all for coming. You might ask, we've been hearing about climate change and climate jubilee for years and years and years. So why today? Why are we here today? 2 weeks from today, the leaders from all over the world are going to be in Glasgow, Scotland, for the United Nations. Thank you for reminding me. For the United Nations Climate Change Conference. People will be coming from all over to think about and to act, we hope, on climate change. We know in our world, climate change is all around us. If you think about the droughts in the West and the wildfires that still haven't been extinguished, you think about the hurricanes and the floods on the East Coast and the South, all over. And then even in the Boston Globe, I read last week that the Boston Common could potentially be covered with water. So it's here, it's everywhere, you can't ignore it any longer. The leaders of this conference will come together and they'll make promises. We actually think that they're gonna expand their commitments and they're gonna grow their commitments. But I think as we, as members of the faith community across the world, have to say is that promises and commitments are not enough. We need actions. It's time.
It's a longer conversation. Yes, of course. And I think I got it.
There are, well, I mentioned hundreds. As of today, there are 437 religious communities that are gathered today in 43 different countries. I've been on Zoom calls with people from Malawi and Uganda and England and all over the world who are saying enough is enough. Promises are not enough. We need action. And so as members of the faith community around the world, we're saying that destroying the planet is against our religions. And we need to make people active to help us move this dial in our favor. Thank you.
As has been referenced, we are not here alone. There are gatherings happening across this country, and this comes at the tail end of an incredible and historic witness this past week in what is known as our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., People versus Fossil Fuels. There was an incredible gathering led by Indigenous leaders across our country, across Turtle Island, who are standing up and who are the most vulnerable and most affected right now by climate's chaos. The frontline communities, as we call them, are crying out and ask people to show up in solidarity in Washington, D.C. this past week. And thanks to their courageous leadership and invitation, 655 people were arrested for civil disobedience there in D.C. And I want to name those activists who have summoned this work and hold them in our hearts and our prayers as we vigil today as well. If you have read the news, I pray that you have seen some of these reports. We can pass around links if you have not. And we're grateful to be standing in that witness. As we do so, I want to also invite Reverend Joshua to share a few words of connection around climate justice in his own experience as we continue. And after we hear from Reverend Joshua, Reverend Vernon Walker should be here. He is a little delayed from church this morning. We'll also share with us a little bit of what's happening here in downtown Boston, how we can commit in solidarity in these ways. Reverend Joshua.
I am reminded as a former resident of the city of New Orleans that climate change is real. I'm very thankful to be a member of a church, partnering with you all here in the greater Boston area, recognizing the impact and realizing that it has an impact on real people in real homes. We're just recently reminded of just summer storms that passed through the city of New York and in New Jersey, where flooding happened in places that never happened before. We have to come to grips with that. The time is now. The time is yesterday even. But as we stand here today, we are reminded that we're not alone. We are reminded that we have God on our side, that we actually have the ethical and the moral mandate to move forward, to actually make a difference. Again, like I say, I'm thankful to be surrounded by people here who understand this. I'm thankful to be part of a church that is committed to the cause. And again, we're a church that's not alone. I know some of y'all are passing by trying to figure out what are we doing here. We are taking our stand. We are making our voices heard around climate change, not just here in Boston, but here in this country and in this world. Thank you very much.
Amen.
We go from the frontline communities around Turtle Island. We go to DC. We go here down to Katrina, and now we return here to Boston. I'd love to invite Reverend Vernon Walker, who's just shown up from church himself. To come forward. There is no better timing. Reverend Walker is no stranger to us here at Church of the Covenant, has filled our pulpit before, but also leads communities responding to extreme weather crew. And Vernon's going to speak to us a little bit about that connection and why faith and justice matter here, particularly in Boston, and what we might be able to do about it. Thank you, Vernon.
Good afternoon, sisters and brothers.
Good afternoon.
This is the day that the Lord has made. We shall be glad and rejoice in it. I don't know about you, but I'm glad to wake up this morning. Anyone else that glad to wake up this morning? My. We woke up clothed and in our right mind. Yes. We know that there is trouble in the world, trouble in the land, but we were waking up by the divine to embrace another day with all its blessing and all its challenges. Well, sisters and brothers, speaking of challenges, we are in a climate emergency. We are in a situation where the extreme weather is increasing, floods are increasing, heat waves are increasing, storms are increasing, wildfires are increasing. However, we still have time to do something about it. We do not have to subscribe to hopelessness and despair. We do not have to subscribe to a mindset of desolateness, but we can do something. And we know in this beautiful city that we live in, Boston, we know that Boston is very much threatened by the impacts of climate change. Certainly, even in this community here, and I'm thankful and grateful for the leadership of the Reverend Rob Mark and the wonderful church here, Church of the Covenant, that's being a light in the community, being a beacon in the community. But the reality of it is that this community is threatened by the rise of sea level, because this community, along with other parts of Boston, are on landfill. So simply what we do at the communities is responding to extreme weather. And it's good to see so many friends here, the Reverend Fred and my dear brother right there, and appreciate the brother that spoke before myself, and glad to be here with you all, sisters and brothers. But what we do at the communities responding to extreme weather is we prepare people in an equitable and sustainable manner for the impacts of climate change. Yes, we need the mitigation approach, and I'm so glad that Reverend Fred was down there in DC and others were down in DC raising the flag of awareness to the Biden administration, which they already know, but need a reminder that we need to take this seriously. We need a Green New Deal. We need to expedite our use and our dependence on clean energy, and we need to move and transition from fossil fuels, coals, and gas. Otherwise, our children's children will not have a planet to inhabit. And this is not God's plan. I read somewhere that God had given us a responsibility, for those of us who subscribe to a biblical worldview, they've given us a responsibility to care for the earth. And the reality of it is, even if one is not religious, this is our common home. No matter what the differences we have among each other, whether that's different nationalities, whether that's different races, colors, and creed, the reality of it is that Earth is our common home, and we ought to do it more and stand in solidarity to protect our common home.
Amen.
Sisters and brothers, we must understand that climate change is not some single special interest issue alone, but it is interconnected to jobs, foreign policy, labor, human rights, etc. Because the reality of it is that we know, even for our folks that are walking by on Beacon Hill, that climate change is not some far-off reality, but it is here in our face right now. And even as We're going to see more floods, more hurricanes, more storms. The reality of it is that we can be resilient. The way to become climate resilient is through social resilience and building relationship one with another. I heard that we're stronger together than we are apart. And that's essentially what we do at Crew, Sisters and Brothers. And we're grateful for the partnership here at Church of the Covenant, which is a hub, which in partnership with Crew, which is a hub, is an organization that distributes information on how to recognize heat stroke, frostbites, etc. And the reality of it is that, yes, it does seem hopeless and it does seem dark and it does seem gloom, but I am convinced that it's only in the darkness that the stars shine bright, as Dr. King said. It is only in the darkness where we can, the glimmer of hope and the silver lining that we will see is when we come together. And I am convinced, yes, the fossil fuel company is strong, but people power is stronger. Am I right about it? Yes, greed is strong, but the will of the people cannot be defeated. Am I right about it? I am convinced that when we come together, black, white, and brown, I am convinced that when we come together from diverse walks of life and we come together around a common cause, such as protecting our common home, then the arc of the moral universe can be bent towards justice. Am I right about it? Amen. I know I'm right, and I'm going to get out your way pretty soon, but I know I'm right because I read in the Bible that when Moses, I read in the Bible, pardon me for that, I read in the Bible when Moses got together with Aaron and got together with his rod, then they went to go tell Pharaoh, let my people go, and then there was a massive change. And because people came together in that congregation, about 1.1 million, 1.5 million marched through the Red Sea because they were driven by this idea of being together in solidarity and moving forward. So I know there's power when we come together. I know I'm right because we see David connect with his slingshot and connect with his faith. And we see that he slung that rock into the colossal giant known as Goliath. And then it read in the Jerusalem paper the next day, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So I know that I'm right. When we come together, I know I'm right biblically. I know I'm right historically because we see in the civil rights movement, we see Dr. King connect with Rabbi Heschel, connect with A. Philip Randolph, who connected with some white Quakers and people of goodwill. And then everybody came together, and then the wall of legal segregation came tumbling down. So I know there's power when we get together. And I really just stopped by to say that I know that there's trouble in the land. We've got racial injustice in the land. We've got climate injustice in the land. We've got indigenous injustice in the land. But when we come together, I am convinced, then there will be a massive change. And then the will of the people cannot be broken. And I heard the chant that said that the people united cannot be defeated. Say that with me. The people united cannot be defeated. Say it with me. The people united cannot be defeated. And we shall not give up in the fight for justice. We shall not give up in the fight for environmental and racial justice. And we will continue to hold up the banner of justice. We will continue to lift our voices to the high heavens until everybody realize that we must take this crisis serious, and then monumental and massive change will come. Thank you so much.
Everyone. Amen. Thank you, Reverend Vernon, for being here. Thank you for the witness you are to the city and beyond. The fact that there actually exists a group called Crew means we're doing something right. And your leadership is paramount in that effort. Thank you for being here and jogging here from church to get here in time. We are grateful. sometimes the community comes together that we haven't necessarily planned. And Reverend Fred Small, I'm putting this on you. You can say no, but would you be willing to share a song?
You bet.
Reverend Fred Small, as many of you know, is famous in many categories. Song leadership for years, decades, I would say, is one of his many gifts. He's a climate activist to the core, Arlington Street Church, climate minister, and also was down in DC as part of the mass civil disobedience. And we're just grateful for Fred's leadership. Where Fred is, we know we're in the right place. So Fred, I appreciate your being willing to be put on the spot here.
Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? The Black church in the South Carolina Sea Islands has been asking that question for centuries. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? And that question resonates so powerfully today in the climate emergency, because we know that the haves, the 1%, the bankers, the billionaires, they're going to take care of themselves. They're going to take care of their own. They're going to take care of their families. They will not take care of the rest of us. So the question we have to ask constantly is, who is being impacted? And are they at the table? And will they and we, as people of faith, create a future that is more equitable, not less, than the one we have today? Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Everybody has a right to the tree of life. And Guy Carawan took that question and turn it into a song. And I'd like to invite you to sing with me. And if you are within 6 feet of somebody, you ought to be wearing masks when you sing the song, so we keep ourselves safe. Ain't you got a right? Ain't you got a right? Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? That's the song. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? Ain't you got a right? Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? So rocky the road, so rocky the road, so dangerous the journey, so dangerous the journey, but we got a right, but we got a right. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? We come from a distance. We come from a distance. We come from a distance. We got a right. We got a right. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Our lives will be sweeter. Our lives will be sweeter. Our lives will be sweeter, 'cause we got a right. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Amen. Let's share it. Thank you for singing.
Thank you, Reverend Fred. Thank you, thank you. Thank you all for singing. We're about at the end of our vigil, and now is a time for us to center ourselves in a prayerful moment. One thing I have noticed in the climate movements in this past decade is how deeply rooted it is in the power of prayer and intention and spirituality. That is, I think, one of our greatest hopes moving forward. Whether you have faith or no faith, there is a deep prayerfulness about this movement. So please do take a candle if you don't have one. You can have a candle, you can have a sign, you can have a sacred sounding. We're going to do two things. We're gonna go ahead and keep them unlit. We're going to keep these unlit for an intentional reason. It's going to be a message for you to bring these with you and light them at another time in your place as a symbol of the continued movement. But we know what this looks like to light. We will light one here in the front. Betty can maybe light one for the table as we do so. And what we want to do here is we want to have a moment of grounding in total silence, a collective silence. There can be both lamentation and joy and commitment in that silence, whatever you feel led to in the time of silence. We'll share a minute together in silence, and then we will have what we are calling a sacred sounding for climate grounding. Sacred sounding for climate grounding. We'll have about another minute or so where if you have a bell, an instrument, a drum, a cymbal, anything to ring out, you can do so in this time. So let us begin with an intention of silence, of prayer, of grounding, and we'll follow that by just an intoning of sacred sounding as we join our hearts way beyond just this place and this time with all those around this one island home called planet Earth, who we love and we share intentions for a new way forward. Let us be in prayer and in vigil now. So friends, Please take a candle home, kindle it where it's safe, when it is safe, it's intentional. I want to again thank people for being here and present. Reverend Colin Leach from Church on the Hill. This is an individual many of you know because he's in all places and at all times, and he's one of the greatest prayer warriors, nonviolent prayer warriors that I know in this city, and is connecting us. So your presence reminds me that we should be prayerful and mindful about our city's upcoming mayoral election as well. And we pray for a just climate as a result of that election. So friends, hear now a grounding prayer as we close. Let me find this. The words of our Celtic friend, John Philip Newell. This is our sending prayer. For the earth's cycles and seasons, for the rising of spring and the growing summer, for autumn's fullness and the hidden depths of winter, thanks be to you, O Divine One. For the life force in seeds buried in the ground that shoot green and bear fruit and fall to the earth, thanks be to you. Let us all learn from the earth's cycles of birthing, the times and seasons of dying. Let us learn of you in the soil of our soul, O Divine One, and your journey through death to birth. Let us learn of you in our souls this day and the journey of letting go. And may the movement for life and liberation be felt for all. Amen. They thought they buried us. We were seeds. Friends, may you be a seed and go in peace. Thank you for vigiling together. Amen.